In this video, I'm going to talk about the transformative power of humility, and I'll share some tips on how you can cultivate humility in any situation and how you can bring people together in a way that invites humility. So for many years, I would hear people talk about the transformative power of humility, and I had a hard time connecting with that in a way that was meaningful. I could understand it conceptually, but not quite connect with it in a way that it offered genuine transformation for me in my life, until I had an insight that really changed my relationship to the understanding of what humility is. I was on a 10-day meditation retreat, and in between sits, I was having this person come up in my mind and feeling a lot of frustration and agitation. I was wondering, why am I being so triggered by this person? And as I sat with it, I realized that this person was very assertive about something that was important to me, but that ultimately I wasn't that sure about. That ultimately I felt insecure in that situation because there was something that was actually really important to me, but the truth was that I really didn't know. My orientation towards it was more one of not knowing. And my reaction was actually an avoidance of that discomfort. But when I could sit with that and really just be with that discomfort, what opened up was actually an orientation of openness and curiosity. And when I recognized that, it transformed the whole situation for me. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was my first genuine glimpse of humility. And since then, I've created a definition for myself that has served me really well, which is that humility is a lasting awareness of my own arrogance. Now, when I share that with people, they often say, "Hey, Lorenz, you don't seem that arrogant to me." And the thing is that when I say arrogance, what I mean is all the subtle ways that my predispositions, my judgments, my need to be right, my thinking about how something works, all the subtle ways those things show up inevitably in my human experience. In some ways, the biggest arrogance might be to think that I can actually step out of that I can truly be unbiased and neutral in my relationship to any situation. The best that I can do is to be aware of that, and to be aware of that everybody has that the world occurs to everybody in their own way, and to really take responsibility of the way that the world occurs to me. Anything that happens within a context, and it's so important to recognize that in this context of humility. Humility is, for me, really about recognizing that there's so much more that I don't know in a situation than I do. And this is so important today because there's so much going on in the world right now, so much polarization, so many people having really strong positions and righteousness and indignation about what's going on. And while that may be warranted often with some things that are really, really, really horrible, there's always another side to the story. There's always something to understand, not necessarily condone, but to understand. And there is a universe span of millennia and billions of years of cause and effect that have led to everything that we are experiencing today. And there is no way that we as a single human being can possibly see insight into that. And the significance of that is that, to take a really dramatic example, nobody is born wanting to be a terrorist. Nobody on the planet is born with that dream in mind, right? They're born into conditions that cultivate that ultimate outcome. And an orientation of humility invites us to inquire into what is the source of those conditions. What is it that we do not know about a situation? Because what we do know is everything that's present for us. What we do not know is everything that might be present for another person or on the other side of a situation. And inquiring into that doesn't condone it, but it can create the conditions for compassion. And that compassion, that genuine receptivity to what is there on the other side of a situation, transforms everything. It creates the conditions to respond in an entirely new way, to create a future that doesn't look like the past. So how do you approach this? For me personally, one way that I do this is really to ask myself, what do I know about a situation? What do I know? If I'm feeling, particularly if I'm feeling triggered, or I feel a very strong attachment to my position in a situation, right? This is where this kind of activity is most relevant. So if you feel, particularly righteous in some way about some sort of situation, to really ask yourself, what do you know? What do you know? And to continue asking that until you come up to what you don't know. And to ask yourself, what is it that you don't know about a situation? To really explore that territory. Because I guarantee in any situation, when you look deeply enough, there is most likely much more that you do not know than you do know. And when you can connect with that and the discomfort of that, because I think there's a deep sense of insecurity that comes up when we come in contact with what we do not know. It's natural for us to want to be in control and to know, but when we can really touch that territory of not knowing and just be there, to allow that to open up into a space of openness, curiosity, and possibly even compassion, that you really don't know what are the conditions, the circumstances that have led to whatever may be happening on the other side of a situation. If you look at a person and say, this person is so self-centered, they're so selfish, they're so wrong, even that may be cause for compassion, because if a person is truly so disconnected from life and the people around them, that is how they show up. What is the pain that they have gone through? What are the circumstances of life that have shaped them to be that way? And in recognizing that, in that we all emerge from a similar source of life, and that we are all responsible for each other, even if a person feels so wrong that just by virtue of our shared expression of life, we are co-responsible. And to respond from a place of compassion, again, that doesn't mean that you condone something, but it does mean that you really recognize the common experience of life that we are sharing. And for me, that's the heart of humility. Really recognizing our own situatedness, recognizing that everyone has a situatedness, and also recognizing that underneath that situatedness, there is one common situation, life. And we all emerge from the same life, the same web of interrelationship, the same infinite chain of cause and effect. And by really landing in that with honesty and deep integrity and responsibility, we can create the conditions to respond in a new way. All right, I hope that's been helpful. And I want to share one final thing, that if you're wondering, okay, that's great, I can cultivate that with myself, but how do I cultivate this with a group of people? And the way that you do that, particularly say you have a group learning experience, is really to create an invitation for people to share authentically, vulnerably, what's present for them. Because in that kind of situation, a person can hear themselves being reflected and mirrored. And that opens up this territory of, wow, I didn't realize that this thing that I'm struggling with, that I thought was just mine, actually this other person is struggling with it as well. And just by seeing that reflection, something opens up. There's a curiosity that opens up about, well, what else is there that I think is just mine, that actually is shared by so many people? And of course, the way that you create the conditions for that to emerge, that invitation in a genuine way, is to share authentically and vulnerably yourself, to model that for other people, to open up that space so that people really have an opportunity to discover something true for themselves through the sharing of other people. And that's how you cultivate humility. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has somehow offered you some sort of value and insight. I do truly feel that right now, with everything going on in the world, this quality of humility is one of the most important qualities that we can cultivate to really get in touch with our humanity. So much love.